Hey guys, so this week we are in my kitchen. I wanted to cook a recipe for you guys that I recently discovered that's been amazing. It's like the best food that I've ever made for myself. This recipe is going to be presented in a way that's just for one person, so if you want to, double it, triple it for however many people. I think it's a really amazing meal for when you're just cooking for one person. Like, it's delicious. So what we're going to be making today is called goat cheese Alfredo bucatini with pine nuts. So it's going to be pasta. There is dairy, but it is vegetarian. Obviously you can make whatever alterations are needed if you have any other dietary preferences, but let's go ahead and just jump right into it and I will show you everything you're going to need. Okay, so here you can see the majority of my setup. I have two burners that you're able to see from this angle, but I am going to be using all three burners. What you're going to need as far as ingredients. First, obviously, you're going to want to get the pasta. This is bucatini. It's just a thicker pasta that actually has a hole that runs through the middle of it, so it expands more. It's just a bigger kind of noodle. You definitely don't have to use it, but if you've never tried bucatini, I would try finding this. I just found it in my local grocery store. It wasn't too difficult to find and it's not really any more expensive than the rest of the pasta from this brand. So if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend it. Next are things we're going to need for the sauce. So here I have some heavy whipping cream. The recipe calls for half a cup, so I just have this little jug here, and you are going to want to have heavy whipping cream so it thickens up properly. Then you'll want about 1/4 of a cup of just crumbled feta goat's cheese to put into the sauce. Additionally, in the sauce, you're just going to want some minced garlic. I would recommend getting fresh if you have some, but I just already had some in a jar. You're also going to want cooking wine, white cooking wine, and this is something you totally could just buy in your grocery store, even underage. It is alcoholic, but it's salty AF, so don't try to drink it. I did look it up. You can substitute this for just white grape juice with some vinegar or lemon juice if you want, to not use the cooking wine, and then you would just add some additional salt that this would normally have in it for you. And then also just some red pepper flakes for a little bit of spice in there. And then the original recipe just calls for some frozen peas, but I just have this can of sweet peas and carrots. Obviously you can substitute whatever vegetable you want into there. This one's already open and half used because I've made this recipe before, but you're just gonna need about a half a can, which is anywhere from a half a cup to a cup of vegetables. And then I also have this jar of roasted peppers. I generally don't actually use that much, but again, discretionary. And then of course, to top it off, we have some pine nuts. And then you'll want some cooking oil and salt and pepper for taste. For utensils, what we're gonna need is a small pot for the sauce, a small pan for frying up all the vegetables and finishings, and then a large pot or pan. This here is technically a pan that's just deep. I also have here just a stirring utensil. I'm going to be using this generally throughout all of the dishes. A knife to cut things, measuring spoon, this is just a 1/4 cup, and then a cutting board. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to fill this up with water and start the pasta going. The pasta does take a very long time to cook, so you want to get this started and even let it sit there for a minute. Make sure all of the pasta is totally submerged before we start any of these other processes. So now I have this filled up with just enough water to put the pasta into. I'm going to go ahead and just put this on high heat real quick and then throw some salt in there so we can get it to a boil. While that's coming up, the next thing that you're going to want to do, if you are using canned vegetables, I would say put them in the freezer, especially if you're working with peas, just because we are going to be putting these up in a frying pan with other things. They get kind of mushy, so by putting them in the freezer for a little bit, that will stiffen them up so they don't just mush all over the place. Okay, so now that we have this going to a little bit of a light boil, I'm going to go ahead and put the pasta in. The recipe calls for 1/3 of this size of a box. Because I've already made it before, I'll just take half of this in here. So the box says it's only supposed to take about 7 minutes to cook, but this has never taken 7 minutes to cook for me. So now that we've got this in the water, you can see it's starting to soften up. Let's go ahead and move on to the sauce. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to put just enough oil in the pan so the garlic doesn't stick to the bottom. And then we're going to put about a tablespoon of garlic in there. Gonna go ahead and turn the heat on that, and we're just trying to pull the flavor out of the garlic, heat it up a little bit. So now we're going to go ahead and add the cooking wine. You're going to want to add anywhere from 1 to 2 tablespoons in here to give it a little bit of saltiness and a little bit more flavor. Okay, so now we're bringing the cutting board into the mix. If you were using fresh garlic, obviously you would have already minced it to put it into the sauce here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up these red peppers. I'm going to pull a couple out and cut them into very small square pieces. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take your half cup cream, just pour it in here. So if you're working with canned, go ahead and pull them out of the freezer. I can see they're already sticking a little bit to the sides, which is a good sign. Gonna go ahead and put, again, just a little bit of oil so the garlic doesn't stick. And then another tablespoon of garlic onto here. What we're looking to get here is really just a nice golden brown finish. As this starts to come up to a boil again, I'm going to go ahead and add the goat's cheese. And the idea is to mix it in so that all of the cheese melts into the sauce. Just gonna turn the heat up on this real quick for a second. I just had a taste of the sauce and oh my god, perfect. So now that all the cheese is melted into the sauce, I'm going to go ahead and add some red pepper flakes to taste. Last time I put way too much in, so I'm going to go a little bit light on it this time. You can see you're getting a nice little bit of color on the peas, so I'm going to go ahead and add some pine nuts. I would say use about 1/8 of a cup, and even then that's kind of a lot. The pine nuts really don't need a whole lot of time to cook, but having them on the heat helps them just soften up a little bit and get a little bit of color and flavor into them. Pasta taste test. Perfect. So the pasta is cooked great on both ends. That's really what you're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and drain the pasta and leave this on here for another second. You can see we have some really nice color on there. I'm actually going to go ahead and take it off the heat, but I am going to let the sauce simmer for just another minute. I'm going to put some flash heat on it. I'm going to bring it to a quick boil and then turn it off. So as you can see, I've returned the pasta to the pan. If you are worried about presentation, don't do what I'm about to do. But I'm gonna take all of the vegetables and everything and just put them right in with the pasta. If you want it to look a little nicer, you can just top it off with these vegetables. But I prefer to have everything mixed in where I don't have to do it on my plate and lose everything. Just gonna mix it up pretty good. Then I'm going to take the sauce and just drizzle it all in there. I'm going to go ahead and mix that up. My sauce is still a little bit milky, so I'm going to let this sit here for it to thicken up just a bit. So I've applied a little bit of heat just to boil off that last little bit of cream. Give it some more thick sauce. Alright, now we are ready to plate. So I don't know if it looks as delicious as it smells, but I guarantee you if you make it, it'll be great. I'm just going to add some powdered Parmesan cheese to taste. And of course, take a bite. I will list all of the ingredients and everything that you'll need down below, so it's really easy to follow. The cook time turned out to be about 35 minutes, so go ahead and expect that, but I think it's worth it. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and go ahead and leave me some comments down in the bottom. But I will go ahead and see you next week for a new video.